My stepdaughter said, "You're not invited to my wedding, but you can still pay." So I pulled every wire transfer, deleted my name from the contracts, and booked a trip for one. Her mom cried in the parking lot. Her dad never showed. The gown never left the plastic wrap. "You're not invited to the wedding, but you can still pay." That was the sentence. 10 words. 10 years erased. I didn't argue, didn't ask why. Just stared at the message Lauren held out to me, her hands trembling like she was the one betrayed. Skylar's name at the top. The glow of the screen washed her face in the kind of cold light that strips things down to the bone. The message sat there, simple and brutal. "It's nothing personal. I just want close family there." Close family. And I wasn't it. So I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't ask what I'd done wrong. I just opened my laptop, and one by one, I started pulling out the wires I'd stitched into the foundation of her life. Cancelled the florist, the venue, the band, the hotel blocks, the car rental. I called the caterer myself. The deposit was still refundable. And then I booked a flight. Not somewhere tropical. Not a beach where the sting of humiliation would blend with sunscreen and Mai Tais. No, I booked a cabin deep in Montana. No reception. No schedule. Just frost on the windows, firewood stacked to the ceiling, and a silence I didn't have to earn. I left the next morning. And the wedding? It never happened. The dress stayed in its plastic shroud. The guests who flew in found an empty hall and unanswered calls. The photographer released the date. And Skylar. She went on Instagram and blamed logistical issues. Posted a story of herself drinking white wine on a patio with the caption, "Everything happens for a reason." She never explained. Never apologized. Never even asked if I was okay. And her father, Gary, he didn't even show. That was the part that almost made me laugh. The man she wanted so badly in the pictures. He ghosted her on her own wedding day. Just like he always did. Skylar was 13 when I met her. Her father was already a myth then. He'd text twice a year, send photos of himself holding drinks in places he never invited her to. But he always had a caption ready, "Princess time 2 hearts," or "Can't believe how grown up my girl is." Pictures. Posts. Nothing real. When she broke her arm in 9th grade, it was me at the ER. When she flunked her math class, I stayed up 3 nights helping her get through summer school. When her first boyfriend cheated on her, I drove 2 hours just to pick her up from a party she wouldn't talk about until years later. I never asked her to call me dad. I never expected it. But I thought, no, I believed that fatherhood was something you did, not something you demanded. That if you just showed up enough, gave enough, loved enough, you'd matter. I told myself that over and over, like a prayer or a spell. People thought we were close. On the outside, we looked like a family. Thanksgiving dinners, matching Christmas pajamas, birthday candles and clumsy toasts. Skylar smiled in pictures. She hugged me when relatives were watching. She said thank you when the checks cleared. But in private, "Who's that?" "Oh, just my mom's husband. Just not stepdad. Not Rob. Not even he helped raise me. Just a line she used to keep me where she wanted me. Convenient and forgettable. Still, I stayed. I thought, this is what you do. This is what love means. You keep building even when the house leans sideways. She wanted to go to design school. I funded her application fees. She needed a new MacBook. I drove to Portland to buy one with the specs she wanted. Her internship in Boston? I paid her rent for 3 months. Her car broke down again, and I took the bus to work for 2 weeks while she drove mine. I didn't keep a list, but somehow she did. Just not of the things I did right. Like the birthday party she threw when she turned 21. Her real dad showed up with some designer bracelet still in the store bag. He took a selfie with her. She posted it with a caption, "Best surprise ever." No mention of me. I cleaned up that night alone. Took out the trash. Recycled the bottles. Lauren stayed to make sure Skylar had what she needed. She didn't ask if I needed anything. The next morning I checked my phone. Skylar had posted an album. Family, friends, and unforgettable memories. 37 pictures. I wasn't in a single one. That's when it started to crack. Not loudly, not like glass shattering, but slowly, like a foundation that had been eroding under the weight of denial. And I kept walking on it, pretending the floor wouldn't give out. I kept showing up, even when I knew I was just a ghost in the room. Someone who covered the bills but didn't belong in the stories. Lauren? She noticed. Sometimes. She'd wince when Skylar brushed me off. When she rolled her eyes at a joke I made. When she introduced me like a coworker at her graduation. But Lauren never said anything. Because to say something would have meant breaking the illusion. And we'd all worked so hard to keep it going. So when that message came, "You're not invited, but you can still pay," I didn't lose my temper. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I just felt something click into place. 10 years. 10 birthdays. 10 Christmas mornings. 10 years of being the first one there and the last one thanked. Of being useful, generous, invisible. That message wasn't a betrayal. It was a confirmation. I had never been family. I had been financing the idea of family. And when I stopped paying, the illusion collapsed. No confrontation. No apology. Just silence. And in that silence, I finally heard the truth. She was never mine. Not in her heart. Not in her words. Not in the version of her life she showed the world. She was Gary's daughter. And I was her mother's husband. Full stop. That realization didn't come with bitterness. Came with clarity. With a kind of stillness I hadn't felt in years. Like I could finally stop trying to breathe through someone else's lungs. So I went to the mountains. No cell signal. No Skylar. No Lauren. Just a porch, a thermos of black coffee, and the cold air pulling the noise out of my head like poison from a wound. And for the first time in a decade, I sat in that silence and didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. Not money. Not explanation. Not presents. I was done. I paid for college. Covered rent. Bought her first car, first MacBook, first plane ticket across the country when she landed that internship in Boston. Helped furnish her dorm room. Even sent surprise Venmo payments during finals week with little messages like, "Lunch on me. You've got this." She never replied to those. Not once. But when she needed help moving into her second apartment, after she and her roommate had a falling out, I drove 5 hours on a Saturday, loaded up boxes in the rain, and helped her build 2 IKEA shelves while she scrolled through her phone and laughed at memes she never shared with me. Still, I kept the receipts. Not because I wanted reimbursement, but because some part of me thought, maybe one day when she's older, she'll look at this list and understand. Instead, what came next was a bill. Lauren brought it up casually one night. We were standing in the kitchen. She was stirring sauce. I was uncorking a bottle of red wine. The quiet domestic moment you're supposed to cherish after decades of hard work. But she was distracted. Her voice floated out between wooden spoon turns and glances at her phone. "Skylar's looking at a venue on the coast," she said. "A vineyard. It's really beautiful." She sent me pictures. I nodded. "Sounds nice." She wants a jazz trio, a 5-course dinner. Oh, and a customized arch made out of reclaimed driftwood. Very her. You know? That's when I looked at her. "You mean you guys already booked it?" She hesitated. Just long enough to make my chest tighten. "No, not yet. But she's just trying to get the vision in place. She wants it to be perfect. It's her day. Her day, of course." That phrase had become a kind of shield. A license to demand, erase, and bulldoze anyone who didn't fit into her curated narrative. Including me. Lauren stepped around the counter and placed a folder in front of me. "What's this?" She smiled like it was nothing. "Estimates." The folder contained typed budgets, proposals, itemized checklists. Flowers, $4,700. Catering, $12,000. Venue, $8,500. Hair and makeup, hotel rooms, photographer, dress alterations. Total at the bottom, $41,300. She tapped the page with a painted fingernail. "Don't worry, we'll split it. You and me." Split it? I looked at her like I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. And maybe I didn't. Maybe I'd never really seen her clearly until that moment. "She's your daughter," I said. "She's your family too," Lauren replied, a little too quickly. "Is she?" That thought came uninvited. It slipped between the cracks in my resolve and sat there, quietly hardening. "She's your family too." Except she wasn't. Not when she introduced me to her friends. Not when she posted about her support system and cropped me out. Not when she asked her father, Gary, to walk her down the aisle, even though he hadn't sent her more than a meme and a late birthday text in 5 years. Still, I said nothing. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and nodded. "Send me the invoices," I said, and I paid. Every cent. That was the deal, right? That's what we're told stepfathers do. Step up, step in, step aside. I did all three. The dress was delivered. The florist confirmed. The catering was finalized. The playlist was approved. I sat in the shadows of the planning like a polite guest at my own funeral. And then, 1 week before the wedding, Lauren got the message. Came while she was folding towels. She froze halfway through the stack and sat down on the edge of the bed. Her face went pale. "What is it?" I asked. She handed me the phone. It was a message from Skylar. I read it once, then again, slowly, like maybe I'd misunderstood. "Please tell Rob not to come. It's nothing personal. I just want only close family there." Underneath that, a separate text, like a footnote. "He's still covering everything though, right?" I didn't move, didn't blink. My breath stayed in my throat like it was waiting for permission. Lauren looked at me, eyes wide with something between apology and fear. "Rob." I stood up. "I need a minute." I walked into my office, shut the door, and sat in the chair I'd assembled the night Skylar got into college. I remembered it clearly. She'd wanted a place to work on her design projects over Christmas break. I stayed up until midnight building that chair, even though my back was shot from work, even though she never once said thank you. I looked around the room now. Pictures, frames, evidence. Me and Skylar at her high school graduation. Me holding a cupcake at her 17th birthday. Me standing behind her while she opened a care package I'd mailed to her dorm during a bad flu season. All lies. I turned to my computer. Bank portal. Open. Caterer. Cancelled. Florist. Reversed. Photographer. Date released. Venue. Notified. Refund pending. Car rental. Gone. The dress? Let her father pick up the bill if he even bothers to answer a call. I paused at the honeymoon suite. A luxury resort in Santa Barbara. Non-refundable. I left it. Let it burn. I logged out. Sat there for a moment, hands still on the keys, listening to the sound of nothing. Not even birds. Just the hum of electricity. Then I booked my own trip. A cabin in the Montana wilderness. Off-grid. No Wi-Fi. No cell towers. Just sky, wind, and breath. I walked into the kitchen. Lauren was still sitting on the bed, her eyes red. She looked up at me like I was someone she used to know. "She didn't mean it like that," she said softly. I said nothing. "She's just overwhelmed. You know how she is." I nodded. "I know exactly how she is." Lauren reached for my hand. I let her touch it, just for a moment before pulling away. "She said I'm not family," I whispered, "but she still expects the check to clear." That's when Lauren started to cry. Not the kind of crying that demands comfort. The kind that happens when someone realizes they've built a house on borrowed ground. I packed that night. I didn't sleep, just moved through the motions of detachment. Skylar texted me around midnight. For messages. "Did you cancel everything? Are you serious right now? You're ruining everything. This is so typical of you." Typical. 10 years. Typical. I didn't reply. The next day, the fallout began. The venue called Lauren. The photographer posted availability online. Guests started asking questions. Skylar issued a vague statement about unexpected changes and rescheduling due to external factors. She never took responsibility. Never named me. I watched from a distance. Watched her scramble. Watched her flail. Her father never called. Never wired a cent. Never offered to help. And that's when it finally irreversibly clicked. I had never been her stepfather. I had only been her sponsor. So I pulled the plug. I didn't scream, didn't threaten, just flicked the switch. Everything I had quietly funded, every invoice, every deposit, every elegant little piece of her perfect day, gone. Reversed, cancelled, clawed back. It took less than 2 hours to dismantle 10 months of planning. I had the receipts, every one of them. Lauren sat on the floor of the bedroom, still holding her phone. She looked like she was watching someone die and couldn't tell anyone. Like the grief was too indecent to be named. I walked out the front door. Skylar blew up my phone. 10 texts, then 20, then silence. And then came the calls from numbers I didn't recognize. A cousin, a bridesmaid, someone named Mandy, each with the same script. Hey Rob, I heard there was some confusion about the wedding? Or, I'm sure this is just a miscommunication. But it wasn't. The venue was dark. The lights never went up. The catering truck never arrived. The jazz trio double-booked. The bartender took another gig. The guests flew in and found an empty hall. Skylar posted a photo from a hotel room with a caption. Sometimes things don't go as planned, but love is all that matters. Ring sparkles. #reschedule coming soon. Love. All that matters. Funny how it never mattered when I was the one holding everything together. She never apologized. Not once. Not directly. Instead, a message came through from Lauren's phone. Skylar, borrowing her mother's voice. He's being dramatic. That was it. Not sorry. Not, I didn't mean it. Just an accusation. That by stepping away, I was creating drama. As if the real offense wasn't her betrayal, but my refusal to swallow it. That night, I boarded a red-eye to Montana. 3 hours of turbulence. A rental car with one working headlight. A snowstorm that left my boots caked in silence by the time I arrived. The cabin was perfect. Wooden, still, quiet in a way no city ever is. The air felt like it had something to teach me. I left my phone in a drawer and never looked back. And for 2 days I slept. Not just the sleep of exhaustion. The sleep of someone whose body had finally been excused from pretending. On the third morning, I stood on the porch and watched the sun cut through the trees like forgiveness. No voices, no questions, just the soft sound of snow melting into itself. I brewed coffee, sat down in a flannel shirt, and thought about the cost. Not the money, the time, the effort, the years. 10 years. I'd spent 10 years showing up, filling in, working overtime so Lauren wouldn't have to choose between groceries and gas, skipping vacations to pay for SAT tutors, watching Skylar's soccer games alone on the sidelines while her father posted selfies from Cabo. 10 years of building a life for a child who saw me as furniture. Useful, invisible, expected. People used to tell me, "It's so noble what you're doing." They meant it as praise, as if martyrdom were a virtue, as if I should be proud to be the shadow a real father refused to cast. I was told, "You knew what you were signing up for," as if parenting is a contract, not a daily decision to show up even when no one claps for you, as if sacrifice without recognition is somehow more holy. They told me, "She'll understand one day," but she didn't. And here's what nobody tells you. Sometimes they never do. Sometimes the story you write for someone. Every late-night drive, every bandaged knee, every loan co-signed and quietly paid off. They take that story and throw it away. Replace you in the narrative. Rewrite history with the father who only ever made cameos. And when you ask why, they say it's not personal. But it is. It's always personal when you realize you meant less than they let you believe. Lauren didn't call. Not once during that week. She sent a message through our shared calendar. Rent due on the 1st. Just a reminder. Nothing more. Like we were co-workers. Like nothing had happened. I stared at that notification and laughed. Rent, of course. Even after everything, I was still expected to pay. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into the bank account we'd been using for 10 years. The joint one. The one I'd filled and she'd spent. I emptied it, transferred every cent to a new account, one with only my name on it. I paused before closing it. 10 years of trust, of blind, unspoken agreements. Delete. I called the insurance company, removed Skylar from the car policy, removed Lauren from the life insurance, changed the mortgage to reflect new terms. I wasn't petty. I was precise. Then came the credit cards, one by one. All those years I'd been the provider. All those statements marked by Skylar's name. Sephora, Uber Eats, that hotel in Santa Cruz she swore was for a school trip. Cancelled, cleared, cut. It felt surgical, cold, necessary, not revenge. Accounting, because love without reciprocation is debt. And I'd carried a balance too long. That night, I opened an old notebook, the kind I hadn't touched since before I met Lauren. Blank pages, dusty corners. I wrote a list, not of things I had done, but of things I had lost. My health, my peace, my identity. And then I wrote something else. Freedom. I didn't know what it looked like yet, but I could feel its shape in the silence. By the time I came home, the house felt different. Not broken, just hollowed out. Skylar was gone. Back to her apartment, probably. Her wedding dress still hung in the hallway, wrapped in plastic. Untouched. Lauren was in the kitchen. She looked up as I entered but didn't say anything. Just nodded. I walked past her. She didn't follow. The silence between us had hardened into something irreversible. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't ask why. The next morning, I made coffee, poured a second mug, then stopped, poured it down the sink. I wasn't making 2 cups anymore. That weekend, Lauren left to clear her head, said she needed to see Skylar, to help figure things out. She took the dress with her. She didn't come back for 2 weeks. And when she did, her key didn't work, because I had changed the locks. Not in anger, in closure. When she called, I let it ring, then sent her a message. You can pick up the rest of your things Saturday between 2 and 4. I'll be out. She replied, is this really what you want? And I didn't answer, because it didn't matter what I wanted. What mattered was what had been revealed. That I had spent 10 years in service to a family that didn't recognize me until I stopped serving. Now I was done. Let the father she chose shoulder the burden. Let the man who never showed up be the one who gets the call when the bills arrive. Let him walk her down the aisle if he shows. Let him pay for the next emergency. Let him be the presence I was, since he was always the title I wasn't. Because I wasn't going to be both. Not anymore. And now I know. I didn't lose a daughter because I never had one. What I lost was an illusion, a hope, the quiet, desperate belief that if I just kept giving, kept showing up, kept being patient, something would bloom. That love could take root in borrowed soil. That eventually, I would become more than just my mom's husband. But I never was. Not really. I was the scaffolding, essential while the building went up, but always meant to be taken down once it was finished. I was the warmth of a house no one wanted to call home. Skylar didn't just reject me. She made me irrelevant. And Lauren? She let her. I think that's the part that cuts deepest. Not the texts. Not the money. Not even the betrayal. It's the silence. The way Lauren looked at me, after everything fell apart, and said nothing. Not a single defense. Not one "you've done so much." Not even a whisper of gratitude. Just that same blank expression she wore the day I stopped funding the wedding. Like someone watching a fire she didn't start, but didn't try to put out either. And in that silence, the truth bloomed. I was a man who had built a house on sand. A man who had poured years into a woman and her child with the quiet hope that love would be enough. It wasn't. It never was. They depended on me. Yes, financially, practically, emotionally, but they never chose me. Not truly. Not in their hearts. I was a useful man, a convenient man, predictable, patient, reasonable man, but never their man. So I did the hardest thing a man like me can do. I stopped. Stopped waiting. Stopped explaining. Stopped rescuing. I withdrew. Completely. No calls. No texts. No "how are yous?" No checking the calendar for her birthday. No watching Lauren's location on the map, wondering when she'd be home. I didn't hate them. That would have been easier. I just erased myself from their story. And something strange happened. They didn't notice. Not really. A week went by, then another, then a month. No apologies. No doorstep visits. No messages asking, "Are you okay?" Or "Can we talk?" They had moved on, which meant they never needed me in the first place. They needed what I gave, what I paid, what I solved, but not me, the man, the human being. I returned to the cabin in Montana 2 months later. Alone again, this time with books, a notepad, a camera I hadn't touched since Skylar was in high school. The snow was thinner now, melting into the edges of spring. I sat on the porch each morning with a thermos of black coffee and no reason to check my phone. I wrote in that notepad every day. Just lines, thoughts, sometimes memories, sometimes names. The first week I kept writing hers, Skylar. The second week I didn't, and that's when I knew I was healing. There's a kind of grief nobody talks about. The grief of realizing your effort didn't matter. That you could give someone everything. Your time, your money, your loyalty. And they'll still choose someone who gave nothing but excuses and birthday memes. People used to say, "She'll understand one day." She won't. She doesn't want to. Because understanding would mean facing the truth. That she built her future on my sacrifices, and then cut me out of the frame before the picture was even taken. That realization, it didn't make me bitter. It made me clean. And in that clarity, I saw something I had missed for years. I had been living for them. Not with them. For them. Every extra shift. Every canceled vacation. Every postponed hobby. Every unspoken dream. I had put myself in a drawer labeled later, and they never planned to open it. So now I live for me. I wake up when the sun hits the window. I make my coffee slow. I read the paper cover to cover. I take walks without my phone. I talk to no one unless I want to. I spend money on things I used to feel guilty about. Books, good bourbon, fishing gear I never had time to use. And when people ask, "Do you miss them?" I tell the truth. I miss who I thought they were, but not who they turned out to be. I kept the wedding folder, not out of sentimentality, out of proof. Because sometimes when I start to forget, when I start to wonder if I was too cold, too quick to walk away, I open that folder, and I look at the last line in the message Skylar sent. "He's still covering everything though, right?" That's all I need to remember. Not, "Please let him come." Not, "He's been like a father to me." Not, "Tell him thank you." Just a question about the check. That's when I knew. I had been a debit card on legs. A utility. I don't live like that anymore. Now I write. Not books. Just truths. Raw, quiet ones. Lines like, "Respect is not optional. Love without gratitude is slavery. Being used is not the same as being loved." And I sit with those truths until they become armor. People who hear my story often ask the same thing. Would you take them back if they apologized? I used to wonder that myself. But now I know the answer. No, because I didn't walk away from love. I walked away from manipulation, from neglect, from a fantasy that cost me my sense of self. Skylar sent me one last message 6 months later. Just 3 words. "I miss you." I stared at the screen for a long time, and then I deleted it. Because missing someone only matters when you respect what they gave. She didn't. So I sit here on this porch, mug in hand, trees swaying like old friends around me, and I let the silence speak. And you know what? That silence? It has more love in it than 10 years of thankless service ever did. More truth than all the birthdays I paid for. More loyalty than the woman who stood beside me and said nothing. More peace than the illusion of family ever gave me. Freedom, self-respect, and finally, me. So now I ask you, was I wrong? Was I cruel to stop funding the fairy tale? Or was this the only way left to reclaim what they never valued? If you were me, standing there holding that message, what would you have done? Would you have stayed? Would you have paid? Would you have bled? Or would you, finally, like I did, have chosen yourself?